Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today is Taco Tuesday.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos. It's raining tacos out in the street. Tacos, all you can eat. Lettuce and shells, cheese and meat. It's raining tacos. Yum, 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 yummity yum. It's like a dream. Yum, 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 yummity yum. Bring your sour cream.
Oh, gotta love Taco Tuesday. Have to love Taco Tuesday. Although, unfortunately, today I will not likely be having tacos. I know. Although, you know what? I will be eating Indian food today. So maybe if I wrap some Indian food into a roti, then I will have my own I don't know, Indian taco? Nah, that's not necessarily gonna work. It's gonna look like a taco, kind of, but not really be one. But anyway, we celebrate Taco Tuesday just because it is an example of how we here in the United States of America have taken things from so many different cultures and made them uniquely our own. If you've ever been to Mexico and had a taco from Mexico, yeah, it's different. It's different. It's different than how we do it. But that's one of the things that makes America great is that we've taken things from all of the cultures that have come into the United States of America and we have made it uniquely our own, uniquely American. That's why I will continue to say that diversity can be a strength. It is not our biggest strength. Our biggest strength is our unity, in spite of our diversity. Because a lot of people want to, the challenge with diversity is with diversity comes different things. And sometimes those things clash. And to be able to take the best from each of the various different cultures and implement it and make it American, is what makes it better. Anyway, that's how and why we celebrate Taco Tuesday. Today is the eve of New Year's Eve. As I noted, Mike is going to be off this week. I'm going to be here making sure we get you to 200 programs. This is number 199 for 2025, and tomorrow on New Year's Eve we'll have number 200, show number 200, which, by the way, will also be episode number 1036. That's right. We've been doing this now for 5 years. We started in March of 2000, been doing it ever since, and it's been phenomenal. Very much enjoyed it. Enjoyed having all of you. Would love to continue to have you for another 1,000 plus or more even episodes. But here's what we need you to do, though. We need you to like, we need you to share, and we need you to subscribe. We need you to encourage folks. Look, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Rumble. You can find us on Spotify if you want to watch the program. Some of our programs are on Twitter. We're taking a little bit of a hiatus from Twitter for right now, of doing the full broadcast. But there's tons of places where you can find the program. You can find us at therundown.us. You can find us with the California Republican Assembly. You can find us over at Arms Room Radio or at 2A News. We're tons of places, but would love to encourage you to go ahead and let folks know that this is the place to talk about the news of the day from an everyday common person's perspective. As we like to say, 2A News and conservative views. We talk about gun news. There's we try to make sure that if there is gun news that we're talking about it. But unfortunately, there's not necessarily gun news to talk about every day, or at least not interesting gun news every day. But we do the best that we can to try and make sure that you hear about your right to keep and bear arms. Let's go ahead and get into today's news program, though. And before we do what we always do. And as we always start off with a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with the folks over at Hitman Industries. They make rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length. All you have to do is go to hitmanindustries.net. Now, if you've purchased an AR in the last few years, there's a good chance you already have one of their barrels. So why not get another one? Whether you're looking to do a brand new build or whether you're looking to just rebarrel an old rifle, start your your journey, start your experience, start your project. How about that? Start your project with Hitman Industries over at hitmanindustries.net. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all level of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Folks, what happens in California doesn't stay in California. And so if we can have a big red wave in 2026 here in California, that wave will definitely resonate across the country. Want to find out how you can help out? Want to find out why Ronald Reagan called CRA the conscience of the Republican Party? Visit their website at cragop.org. That's cragop.org. Go there, check them out, become a member today. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market. You will find them at hawgholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com. Why is it spelled like that? Because they like helping Americans wear guns. They like it so much, they're going to give you a discount. All you have to do is use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, one word, no spaces, just like it is right up there, and you're going to get a discount on your hog holster. So check them out today, hawgholsters.com. And then you've got the place where you need to go to get your tactical gear. Folks, I don't know about you, but here right now in Sacramento, it is kind of cold. So I need some cold weather gear. So guess where I'm going to go looking for it? That's right, uscombatgear.com, where you can find all things tactical except the gun. They have a huge selection. They specialize in group sales. So you know you're going to get a nice little discount if you're doing a group sale. And then finally, they have the best customer service available on the market. So get your team together, get your organization together, get your department together, and get on over to uscombatgear.com, where you can find all things tactical except the gun. All right, we've been talking about and reporting on, as have many in the conservative media, about the levels of fraud and scandal that has been taking place there in Minnesota. In particular, it seems to be within the Somali community. Now, let me be clear. This does not mean that all Somalis are involved in the fraud. It doesn't even mean most are involved in the fraud. It just means that most of those who seem to have gotten caught so far involved happen to be part of the Somali community. And what's interesting is that how the mainstream media is now covering it, because see, they're not pointing out that this fraud is existing and is taking place. Their perspective is, well, it's more about the fact that, you know, it's more about Republicans pouncing, right? In other words, they're not reporting they're not reporting on the fact that this stuff is occurring. They're reporting on the fact that, and their thing is, well, why are Republicans now pouncing on it? And it's honestly not a good look for them. All right, I do not know why this video does not have sound, because when I played it earlier, it actually had some sound. But let's go ahead and I'll show you here the story. It says here, fraud in Minnesota isn't being covered up even if there's not enough accountability. On Monday's broadcast of CNN's News Night, host Abby Phillips discussed fraud in Minnesota and stated that the idea that this has not been investigated is completely bunk. That's not true. Not only has it been reported, it is being investigated, as Trump DOJ is actually trying to point out tonight. There are likely there I'm sorry, but there likely hasn't been enough accountability. But just because conservatives are finding out about something for the first time doesn't make it new and doesn't make it some kind of cover up. Well, the funny part about it is, and once again, this is the whole Republican pounce message. So she acknowledges that there has not been any accountability, right? In other words, we know this has been going on, and how do we know that this has been going on? Well, because as has been noted, there is footage. There's investigation. There's information. They're right. Shocking footage. This is from show parents pretending to drop off their kids at a Minnesota daycare. Hold on, I'm going to refresh this so you guys can see the actual video that they have here. All right, right here's an advertisement. Let me read this real quick. It says, Shocking unearthed video from 2018 state fraud case shows Minnesota parents dropping off their children at a daycare center and then leaving with their kids moments later as authorities probe rampant billion-dollar fraud scheme in Minneapolis. The surveillance footage, dated 2015, was obtained by Fox 9. Fox 9 parents are seen signing their kids into a facility so providers could state for full days of care that children who didn't actually attend. Some days, no families would even show up at all, but the daycare would still claim reimbursements from the government for the outlet reported at the time. And here's some still footage. Let me play this one right here.
Order for the scheme to work, the daycare centers need to sign up low-income families that qualify for child care assistance funding. These surveillance videos are from a case prosecuted by Hennepin County. They show parents checking their kids into a center only to leave with them a few minutes later. Sometimes no children would show up. But either way, the center would bill the state for a full day of child care. This video from that same case shows a man handing out envelopes of what are believed to be kickback payments to parents who are in on the fraud.
Where was the money going?
I don't know exactly where it went, but it.
So, I mean, there you can see that this was happening. We know that this was happening. And we know that it's been happening for quite a while. Now here's the thing that I don't understand. If we know that this is a thing, and if the media, and this is, once again, this is local media, if we know that this is a thing and nobody is holding them accountable, is it a cover up? Well, yeah, it is. It's a cover up because there's already been whistleblowers inside of the programs. Well, let me clarify. I don't know about the daycare programs. And by the way, just so you know, the accusation of fraud is not just about with the daycare programs. It's with programs about feeding kids. It's about Medicaid programs. Once again, when they look across the spectrum of fraud that has taken place there in the state of Minnesota, in particular in Minneapolis, in particular within the Somali community, it's broad. And it's tens of billions of dollars involved here. And the thing is now we're talking about federal tax dollars. So once you start getting into the billions of fraud, how is the mainstream media, how is the big time media, how are they not reporting on this? How are they not talking about this? How is this not a story that they're reporting on? I think you kind of need to know this. See, the real issue is that one, we know the administration was covering up because it wasn't like they were reporting and sending out press releases that these folks were being caught. They were in fact doing the exact opposite. Those that they caught, and it was like clearly and obviously fraud, they kind of kept it under the table. And they did nothing. I mean, once again, you see it still happening. If you see that it is still happening, and yet there's no big media reporting, nobody's talking about it, how is that not a cover-up? How is it all of a sudden the fact that Republicans are saying something not an issue? There's a reason why people are calling for Tim Walz to resign, why they're calling for his impeachment. Because once again, this has been happening. We know it's been happening now since 2018, and yet it's still happening. Where is the accountability? Where's the media? Why isn't there media reporting on this year after year after year, month after month after month? I mean, we see the doggedness that they have had with going after Donald Trump for whatever, over nothing, right? We've seen when they decide that something is an issue, that something is going to make Republicans look bad, oh, they're on it. They stay on it. They talk about it no matter if no one else is talking about it. But if it's something that makes Democrats look bad, where are they at? CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, LA Times. Where y'all at? Where's Mother Jones? Right? Huffington Post. Where y'all at? MSNBC. Where y'all at? You're nowhere to be found. Billions of dollars in fraud. And yet you are nowhere to be found. Why? Because your friends are the ones who are in the middle of it. Your friends are the ones who are being held accountable. And you don't like it. Yeah, that's the problem. And then, by the way, just to be clear, when it comes to some of this stuff, the folks there in Minnesota, not just the media, but also the state folks, the what do they call them, state workers or state officials and daycare providers, they're pushing back on this viral video. Now, before we get into their explanations, I want to share with you just a real brief, and this is almost like a trailer, because there's a full 32-minute video, but I want to share with you a brief trailer, just snippet of what it is that basically the citizen journalist put together, and it's quite damning if you haven't seen it.
Here in Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. And if you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working, midday. Children should be in here. And this place is licensed for 99 children. And this is the outside. There's no windows, no nothing. And like I said, they literally spelt the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota. The government is complicit with this, and this is just one of the hundreds of child daycare centers here inside of Minneapolis being ran by the Somali population. It's sad that it's happening here in Minnesota, and it stinks that it's happening and it's being labeled on the Somali population. However, that's just the facts of what's happening here inside of Minnesota. $1.9 million for this daycare center that can't even spell learning right.
All right, so now that's just the kind of the brief synopsis, and then once again, there's a whole long video that I'll, if I get a chance, I'll go ahead and I'll put it in the chat. But you can just go, you can actually find it on X. But in the video, you have people going and they're they're knocking on the doors, they're trying to ask people where the money is, yada yada yada. They're saying they want to sign up their kids. Anyway. Let me watch now. I'm gonna play with you a video of some of the pushback that we're getting, and this was part of this story here at Fox News. So here's what the folks, both the state officials as well as the daycare provider, are saying.
I know you wanted to provide a brief statement. Do you want to start with
Yes,
that?
I want to start with the statement, which was a lot of the journalism that's been going on the last couple of days has been really dishonest. I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but I do feel like what was done was someone came to our building outside of operating hours. When there's a specific sign on our door that says our days and our hours, he came outside of those hours and then claimed, hey, they're closed and they're still making money. They're using taxpayer money to work. And it's like, you don't come outside of operational hours and then say they're using taxpayer money. That was completely false. As you can see, we're open Mondays through Thursdays, 2 to 10 p.m. He was here earlier. I don't see him right now. So it's like, are you trying to record that we're doing fraud, or are you trying to put the Somali name and the fraud in the same sentence? That's what really hurt us the last couple of days. We're open. We've been open. We haven't closed. We've been open for eight and a half years now. We haven't closed once during that period. So I want to touch on that first. The second thing is, which is kind of laughable, is the sign. We messed up the sign. We paid somebody to do our sign. He incorrectly did it. We're having him work on it. We paid him to correct the sign. He said it'll be done by this week. So by the end of this week, our sign will be fine. The third thing, which is the fraud claim. There's no fraud going on whatsoever.
We are aware of a video that's being circulated that has gained local and national attention about child care centers in Minnesota. While we have questions about some of the methods that were used in the video, we do take the concerns that the video raises about fraud very seriously. Each of the facilities mentioned in the video has been visited at least once in the last 6 months as part of our typical licensing process. And in fact, our staff are out in the community today to visit each of these sites again so that we can look into the concerns that were raised in the video. At the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, we care about making sure that every dollar of the Child Care Assistance Program and other programs is going where it's supposed to be going and used as intended. Several of these centers have been evaluated for program integrity in past several years. Some of them have been operated for a number of years. One of the centers, Quality Learning Center, closed just over a week ago. I think another one that was mentioned had closed maybe even several years ago. So there have been ongoing investigations with several of those centers. None of those investigations uncovered findings of fraud. So that's where they currently stand. I will say, regardless of past findings, our team is just committed to making sure that we address any of the concerns that currently have appeared with the video, and that's why we are committed to working today to gather information and to assess and analyze additional information for those centers that were identified.
Okay, so I thought there were a couple of valid points that were brought up there. Number one, the big question for me is, were they there outside of operating hours? And I'll be honest, unless it is an after school program, what daycare runs from 2 to 10? That makes absolutely no sense to me. Once again, even in an after school program, who runs a program that goes till 10 p.m.? That makes absolutely no sense unless the economy runs differently there in Minnesota, where the workday starts at 3 p.m. and doesn't end until 10 p.m. I don't know. Once again, that makes absolutely no sense to me. Why you would have a daycare program. Now, once again, if it's an after school program, then why does it run till 10 p.m.? Who keeps their kids in daycare until 10 p.m.? It's not daycare anymore. Now it's gotten to night care. So I don't know if I'm buying that. I honestly don't. I will say this. In particular, with all of the stuff that's been coming out, one of the things that I would be really kind of skeptical about is anybody coming, if I'm running a daycare, no, if you come knock on my door, I'm not just going to let you in. I don't know you. You're saying you're there to sign up a kid. You're pointing a camera in my face. I'm probably not going to let you in. I'm probably not going to be there. I don't know you. It's not like you called and scheduled to come do an interview or anything like that. I'm probably not going to let you in. In fact, I'm probably, especially if I'm probably going to tell folks, I'm not going to do any reviews. Give me your card and I'll have whoever's supposed to speak to whoever's in charge, speak to you when they get in. And that's probably about where I would leave it. I would love to have known, he said midday, but I would like to know what time midday. It would have been nice if he had said, hey, it's 3:00 and I'm standing here. He just said midday. So for all we know, it was noon. For all we know, it was 1, right? Now, if it had been 3:00, like I said, when they said their normal hours of operation, I would have expected someone to be there. Clearly, though, the state official made it kind of clear, a couple of these things that folks have been investigated, and some of them have been investigated and been the subject of investigation. And they say they found no fraud, but yet they also at the same time point out that several of them are closed. Well, why are they closed? And if they're closed, are they still receiving money? And a lot of this, quite frankly, with all due respect to citizen journalists, there's a level of when you go into something that you always have to be kind of careful that you don't allow your desire to have a narrative cloud the full collection of data and information. And we see this all the time from the mainstream media. They don't care about getting all of the information. They just care about getting something that fits their narrative. When they sit in their meetings and they pitch stories, they pitch a narrative. They're not. They claim they're pitching something that they want to report on, but they're really doing is they're pitching. I have a narrative, a story I want to tell, and I'm going to go get information that supports that narrative. It happens in newsrooms all across the country. I've watched it happen. Right? I've seen it happen, and as a result, you wind up with biased news reports. At the same time, citizen journalists have a tendency to do the same, can have a tendency to do the same thing. And my question in this particular case is, did he do that? Did he do his due diligence? I'm not the biggest fan of the gotcha journalism, just kind of showing up and asking people questions, only because people, when you show up, they're naturally on the defensive. Number two, they're very well maybe answers to the questions that you have, but maybe you're talking to the wrong person, right? Maybe you're talking to the right person, but the information isn't there readily available, right? Who knows? But it makes for a sexy video, right? If you watch the 42-minute video, you can see it makes it once again, it makes for a good video. And when you don't have someone on hand who can be there and be available to answer questions, it looks really bad. In my daytime life, one of the things I do as a part of my company, Uncommon Sense Media Group, is crisis communications. In other words, when someone shows up and wants to do a story like this, I'm the person that they call. I'm the person they say, here, this is the number. Please, this is the guy you need to talk to. Go ahead and give Craig DeLuz a call. He'll answer any questions that you have. Right? But then again, not everybody has that. My guess is these folks probably don't have that. Basically, when I look at who the director, the guy who came out and was the daycare director, yeah, he ain't that. He's not. He's not. He answers some of the questions, but he's not the sort of guy. He's not the guy that I would have had out there answering those questions, addressing those things. Anyway, I'm real interested to see, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see real quick. We're going to see as now the Trump administration is now basically DHS, HHS. All folks are descending now upon Minnesota and investigating. So we're going to start to see some revelations. You're going to see a lot of folks from the media, from the actual media, not citizen journalists, but from the actual media show up, and they're going to probably working in some cases to create their narrative. But it's going to be real interesting to see how it all fleshes out. Because I would love to see and hear more about these daycares that have been investigated. What was the result of those investigations? I know for a fact, at least when it comes to the Medicare and Medicaid issues that they've been talking about, we already know that there were whistleblowers who tried to say something and the Walz administration told them, or basically shut them down. We know that that's already happened there. Has that happened in these cases? Has it happened in the case of the daycares? Are they going to be able to get parents? Because here's what's going to happen. One of the things you're going to see happen is there's going to be a big rush to push parents to get their kids to show up for daycare, even if they haven't been, right? There's going to be a big, huge push. And the question is, are they going to stay there? Are they going to keep coming? Because you can't just have them show up 1-2 days or 1 or 2 weeks and some enterprising journalist is going to come back after all the hugabaloo has gone down and find out, was that just a short-term media push or wasn't it? Where does it fall? Anyway, there's a whole lot to going on. And now, the one thing I will say, and this was one of the things that was pointed out by the in that first panel, and I apologize that I didn't have the sound for the first video, but a lot of the challenge we're having with dealing with some of this has to do with the messaging surrounding this whole thing. And I hate to say this, but some of this comes directly from Donald Trump. The very fact that he basically denigrated the Somali community. Once again, it's in theory what he was trying to communicate is not incorrect, but the fact that he basically laid it at the feet of the entire Somali community, I think is wrong. I think even if it's most, which I do not believe that it's most, but even if it's most, you don't denigrate an entire group of people like that. the way in which he did. If you want to talk about how, when you look at what is going on currently in Somalia and you look at some of the challenges that they have within their government, within their economic systems, and then you look at some of those practices being duplicated here in the United States, you can speak to one of the challenges with the differing cultures. There's no doubt that there is something there, that there's something there to talk about, that there's something there to be concerned about. But you don't do it by calling all those people trash. That doesn't work, right? And once again, I get it. That's probably how the average person would communicate it. But you're not supposed to be the average person, Mr. President. You're the president of the United States. You're supposed to be better. You're supposed to communicate better because the words you say have impact, right? Because I do this program, because I have, so many people who pay attention to what I say, I know that my words have impact. So I try to be judicious in the words that I use, right? I try to make sure that I'm effectively communicating what I want to communicate in a way that resonates and promotes clarity. And yet, I don't have a fraction. The words that I say do not have the fraction of the impact that the words that the President of the United States has. I mean, I don't mean this to be facetious, but when the president speaks, it's almost like casting a spell. It literally is. It is. He says something and things go into motion. Things happen when the President of the United States says things. Some things good, some things bad, some things he intended, some things he didn't. So being purposeful in what you say and how you say it is vitally important when you are President of the United States. When you're just me and you, not so much. It's not as big a deal. I mean, it is. It really is. It really does have an impact within our spheres of influence. But on a national, international, and global scale, not so much. That's why I will just say that my biggest pet peeve with President Trump has always been that how he communicates things, he doesn't always consider the impact of how he communicates things. He does sometimes, but not always. And I hate to say this, but oftentimes he doesn't. I don't know if I wouldn't say that's the majority of the time, but I would say often enough to where it is quite noticeable. Noticeable enough that I've always contended that the majority of the issues that he deals with, the majority of the problems that he has, the majority of the fights he has to fight, he's fighting, right? The unwarranted ones were of his own creation. And they came because of something that he said. Now, y'all may not like that. Y'all may not agree with that. But I would encourage you, and don't bring up the stuff, because once again, yes, there is stuff that legitimately people did, the left did, the media said that was nothing more than, them not liking him and then going after him, and it was not of his creation, not of his making. But you can't tell me that none of the things that he's had to deal with, none of the things that have gotten in the way of him being able to be effective, you can't tell me that none of them did not come from something that he said that he either could have said a different way, that he could have said better, or that he probably just shouldn't have said at all. You can't tell me that none of it. You can't tell me none of it. Or you can, you just would be wrong. How about that? Anyway, moving right along. All right, so we got a couple of dueling healthcare stories here. And this first one, I just want to note, everybody, and I see it in particular when I deal with a lot of folks on the left, and I deal with a lot of ethnic media. One of the things that's always kind of interesting is for some reason, they just seem all caught up in socialized medicine, and in particular when it comes to Cuba. And I actually have a couple of friends who actually just went and did some reporting from Cuba and talked about how Cuban culture and how great Cuba was, and yada yada yada. And they part of their conversation was about their healthcare system. Well, the one thing that wasn't pointed out, and this is something that's actually just newly been released in a new report, but as it turns out, Cuba sees about 185 times more preventable deaths due to failed healthcare system than the regime admits. In other words, communists lie, and they lie about their healthcare system, which ain't really working too well. An independent study conducted by Cuban Observatory for Citizens Auditing and published on Monday by the Madrid-based Cuba Siglo XXI think tank found that the communist regime is severely downplaying the number of preventable deaths caused by an ongoing epidemiological crisis. Wow, that word was a mouthful right there. Right there. Anyway, according to the study titled "The Collapse of Cuba's Healthcare System," at least 8,700 Cubans have died as a result of simultaneous occurrence and intensification of several diseases such as dengue, Zika, and chikungunya. Chikungunya, yeah. Anyway, the number, the number, a number that is 185 times higher than the 47 deaths that Castro regime has publicly acknowledged. The study found that these preventable deaths are most visible and striking expression of the collapse of Cuba's healthcare system under communist Castro regime. The OCAC, an independent civil society organization, prefaced its reports by stating that its findings allow the organization to state without ambiguity that the collapse of Cuban health system is not due to, quote, inevitable fate, external factors, exceptional epidemiological contingencies, or adverse climate events, but that it is instead a direct consequence of the Castro regime's policies, which have progressively dismantled Cuban state's essential capacities to protect health and lives of its population. For years, Cuba's healthcare system experienced a state of utter collapse as a result of more than 6 decades worth of disastrous communist policies that have pushed the island nation to the brink of complete ruin. And here's the thing, folks, and we've already talked about this. These 8,700 lives are just a fraction of the hundreds of millions of people who have died under socialism and communism. It is. It's just a fraction of them, and that's because in the end, it doesn't work. In the end, the government controlling, or the quote unquote people, the people never really control them. The whole community never really controls the means of production. It's usually the government that controls the means of production in a communist state, which makes it actually socialist. That's why when people try to tell you communism's never actually been practiced, they're right. When they try to tell you that communism and socialism aren't the same thing, they're wrong, because communism has always been practiced as socialism, right? It's always been practiced as socialism. Because once again, everybody doesn't own everything. The government owns it, the means of production. In any case, and we see here, because there is no incentive to create, there is no incentive to produce, because whether you produce or you don't produce, you get the same. The only people who get more are those who are part of the system that is controlling who gets what. That's it. They're the only ones who get more. Everyone else gets less. There is a significant degree of equality, but that equality is basically at the bottom. And what we're showing here is healthcare is no different. Anyway, we know that, well, first of all, take a look back. And once again, I'll encourage you to take a look back in history. There was a huge progressive movement here in the United States in the early 1920s, 1930s. And what wound up happening was was that you had people like Woodrow Wilson, people like Theodore Roosevelt. I'll throw him in there too. You had a lot of people who were enamored with the idea of progressivism, which was having more quote unquote experts within the government making decisions for the people, as opposed to the people making decisions, the people voting and electing people who will then make those decisions. So instead of a more democratic republic, right, or Republican democracy, right, you had more of they wanted basically a bureaucratic state, a bureaucratic authoritarian state. And that was the progressive movement, which, by the way, is the same exact thing that they're pushing today. But what happened was they were really kind of modeling it after what they thought was taking place in the Soviet Union. What they didn't realize was that the people over in the Soviet Union were pulling the wool over their eyes. We're lying to them, which, if you read Karl Marx, if you read the Communist Manifesto, if you read Rules for Radicals, this is exactly what they encourage you to do, because it works against human nature to get you to basically deny your own, you have to deny human nature, right? You have to say, I don't care about me. I don't care about my family. I only care about the nation. And if my kids starve, if my kids' rights are taken away, if my rights are taken away, doesn't matter as long as the nation thrives. And I'm going to give my best and do my best to make sure that the nation thrives and sacrifice everything for the nation, for the collective. Well, that works directly against human nature. And even the people who came up with the idea of this knew that. So that's why they said you have to lie, right? You lie to get the power and the authority. And then once you have the power and the authority, you use the force of government to maintain that control. Once you've gotten the control through lying, now you use the force of government or the force of arms to maintain it. And you lie externally because you want to spread this disease to the rest of the world. You make it look all pretty. Well, they got discovered. And people saw what was going on. They saw the 100 million people who were starving to death or who were being killed and assassinated, they saw the confiscation of private farms and assets. And then all of a sudden, the West, the progressives throughout the West, including the United States of America, well, they all disappeared. Now, where'd they disappear to? Academia. They went to Yale. They went to Harvard. They went to Stanford. They went to Columbia. They went to MIT. They went to all of those places and basically hid in academia until, well, about 15 years ago, they started to pop their heads out again. After decades, after generations of educating educators and educating educators in various different fields, including, by the way, medicine and healthcare. Anyway, and so now we are where we are, and you've got these folks out there. Anyway, God, I hate it when I get on long rants like that. I don't mean to go off on long rants like that, but sometimes I think context matters. And, we've talked about some of this stuff before, but I've never really taken the time to go off on a long kind of explanation of stuff like that. Anyway, this is the other healthcare story I was talking about. And this has to do with not just the fact of what's happening, but how it's actually being portrayed. And this is an article by Politico. Now, I'm making sure to point out that they're rolling out a $50 billion investment in rural health. Now, one of the complaints that took place during the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill was that, well, they're denying health care to rural communities. Well, no, they're not. They're like the cut in Medicaid that they're going to hurt rural communities. No, they're not. In particular, because they balanced a lot of that out with this investment. But notice how Politico calls it. Trump administration doles out billions for rural health, right? Now, obviously in smaller print, California, Montana will receive near equal amounts in 2026, despite their massive disparities. See, we'll just see how they're talking about this. It says here, the Trump administration on Monday doled out billions to states from a fund Congress created to transform rural health care. The funds, however, will be lavished more generously on small states and states that adopt administration-friendly policies. Let me get that a second one. Administration-friendly policies, meaning policies that are consistent with the law. The purpose of this $50 billion investment in rural healthcare is not to pay off the bills. Dr. Mehmet Oz, head of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, told reporters Monday. The purpose of the $50 billion investment is to allow us to right-size the system and to deal with the fundamental hindrances of improvement in rural healthcare. He said disbursements for states between 145 million and 281 million for 2026 amounts largely driven by how large a state's rural population is. Annual allotments will be reassessed based on the state's ability to meet criteria laid out in their applications. The national reaction, to programs has been mixed since the announcement this summer. Some lawmakers and rural health advocates are upset that states are receiving billions more in funding for passing policies favored by the Trump administration. Officials in some Democrat-led states accuse Trump administration of using the program to punish its perceived rivals and reward allies. And here's the thing. And the funny part is that what he is noting here, what the White House is noting is like, look, we are administrating, or we've put together this fund in order to get certain things done. And we have to we have to know that you're going to use the money in the way in which we want you to use the money. If you're not going to do that, we're not going to give you the money. And blue states like California have already demonstrated they're not going to do things the way the administration, or let me clarify, the way the law, the one big beautiful bill that was passed and signed into law states. So, because California chooses to do things contrary to the federal law, they're going to get less money than they otherwise would have. And now they're complaining about it. Why are some of the smaller states getting it? Why are they getting more or disproportionately more? Because they are doing things and have demonstrated that they will do things that are consistent with administration policy, ergo, consistent with the law. That's what's hilarious about this. Democrat-run states are like, well, we should get more money, even though we're not going to use it the way you want us to use it. No, you shouldn't. And no, you won't. And so rural communities in places like California are going to suffer as a result of it. Why? Because the state of California refuses to capitulate. And when I say capitulate, I mean follow federal law. That's it. That's all it comes down to. Follow the law, you get more money. Right? They did the exact same thing with when Obama passed Obamacare. Right? When they passed the ACA, states that amended their local programs got more money than those that didn't. Excuse me. They got more money than those who didn't. It's the same exact thing because they weren't interested. And by the way, those states didn't complain. They didn't say, well, we're not getting the money that they're getting. They said, no, thank you. We don't want the money. We don't want to amend or change our programs because we know it's going to result in failed healthcare. If you don't like what Trump is doing, then don't ask for the money. Don't complain about not getting the money. It ain't that hard to figure out, right? You don't get to just show up and change the rules of the game and say, well, I want to win the game, but I don't want to play by the rules of the game. No, you don't get to do that. Or I guess you can, just don't be surprised when you still lose the game. Just saying. All right, folks, that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown. All caps, no spaces, one word. Get your Hog Holster today. We're going to mix these up a little bit. We got a couple that are here that are specifically from the that are specifically relating to the healthcare story. Not the healthcare, the childcare story today. Here's the first one. This, I believe, is well, anyway, you got a kid out here trying to fight his way into into the school, and it says pull. He's pushing on the door, and it's got the sign from outside of the place, Quality Learning Center for kids who can't read good. Oh, that is hilarious. That is hilarious. Here's another one where you've got Tim Walz and you got Tim Walz and what's her face? Ilhan Omar outside of the Leering Quality Center. They've got their little caps and counts on. Oh, that is funny. All right, now here's a comedian, and he's laughing and joking about some of the things going on there in Minnesota.
I love Minneapolis. I always say Minneapolis is like Kanye West. 6 years ago, it was great. Yeah. Yes. Should I go to the mall? Should I go to the lake? Should I go by Tim Walz's house and call him a retard? Who the hell knows? What are you going to do? I don't know. Wow, okay. I don't know what the hell's going on in this town. Jesus Christ. You got 3M, Target, Pillsbury, and what the hell, a ton of Somalis, you know? You are a wacky bunch out here. Very random. Seen you guys are all over the news. It's crazy. Tim Walz, his approval rating is downs. But, you know, tough times. Tough times out there. That Ilhan Omar, I'm attracted to her. She's like a sister to me, you know? And, okay. We're having fun. No wonder she wanted to come to the Twin Cities. She loves a twin. All right. Okay. I love it here. I've been coming here for years. I got the Juicy Lucy, and I've already shit blood. Thank you. Yeah. When my ass was dilated, I went to Gay 90s. You know, you got to do it. Yep. I like that name. It sounds like the level of gay. How gay was it? It was like Gay 90s, man. It was crazy.
Okay, probably could have done without those last couple of jokes. But very, very inside comedy. So if you've been following what's been going on there in Minnesota, in particular in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar, those were hilarious jokes. If you weren't, you're like, what is he talking about? But anyway, those were very, very funny. Here's another comedian, and he's not necessarily talking specifically about them, but I always thought this was funny, and I kind of completely agree with him on his characterization between some of the folks on the right and some of the folks on the left. Anyway, check it out.
I don't do liberal jokes at all, so you're good. Don't worry. I don't touch y'all, because y'all are not fucking fun, dude. Y'all are not fun. Some of y'all are mad I just said you're not fun, okay? Like, I don't make fun of y'all, because y'all are sad a lot, too, and I feel bad. I don't know. Y'all like to be sad, I think. I have a buddy up here. I invited him out. I was like, you want to come out tonight? He's like, I can't, man. Everything going on in the world, it's just hard to even get out of bed. I was like, your dad pays your rent. Like, it's hard to get out of bed because you're in a Tempur-Pedic, brother, okay? You know? $9,000 mattress. You know who the opposite is? I hate to go back to it, but it's rednecks, dude. They'll have the worst life, be happy as hell. I've had conversations almost exactly like this, people in my hometown. I'll just be like, Miss Hayes, I haven't seen you in forever. And the rednecks give you the past 6 months with a smile. Just be like, oh, I was on top of the trailer, right, taking the Christmas lights down. I trip, I fall, I break my neck, okay? They take me to the hospital. I got a tumor, stage 3. I got to go on a chemo in 2 weeks, all right? While I'm at the hospital, found out my husband was fucking that hussy down the street, Brenda. You know that bitch at the bank, yeah. And my daughter, Abigail, she got a divorce, right? Lost custody of the kids in the divorce. So when they were coming to pick up the kids, they hit the dog in the driveway, killed it. But I am blessed, man. I'm blessed, you know, I mean. The Lord.
Okay. Yeah, we know those folks. And one more here for the folks, for the folks in our Second Amendment community. And this one's a little hard to see, but it's easy to see. I'll explain it to you. It says 97% of the guns are in red, 97% of the gun violence is in blue. And what you're noting is all of the places, most of the places where most of the guns are, there's no gun violence, and they all, by the way, happens to be Republican-led areas. And the places where there is tons of gun violence, that tends to be in blue. Generally tends to be controlled by Democrats. In fact, different from this study, once again, I'm giving these numbers largely off the top of my head. I believe I saw a statistic that noted that something like, if you were to take out the top 3 or 4 run Democrat cities, the three biggest cities, and they're all run by Democrats. We would probably drop somewhere to like 180 something when it comes to the amount of gun violence that takes place here in the in the country. The United States would fall to something like 180 something. That's largely because it ain't the guns, folks. It's the people. When I say it's the people, I mean it's the policies that encourage the people and allow them to get away with engaging in such violence. Anyway, didn't mean to take something that was funny and mess it all up. But anyway, let's go ahead and excuse me. Let's go ahead and. By the way, we're at the end of the program today. But before we go, one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We have Hitman Industries rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length at hitmanindustries.net. We got the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Learn more at cragop.org. And then you've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then you've got the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, and that would be at uscombatgear.com. All right, folks, that's going to be it for today's program. We're going to be back tomorrow for our number 200 program. That's right, number 200, not 200 program, 200 for 2025, our last show of 2025. Very much appreciate you tuning in. Very much appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We will be back mañana. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and once again, we will see you tomorrow.